Hi everybody. I meant to mention yesterday when I did my little quick video that I'm back on Facebook. I'm centering my shirt. I'm back on Facebook. I've been gone for years and I just kind of spontaneously did a video there, and I used to have just a really big wonderful group of people that would get in there, and a bunch of faces appeared or names appeared, that I hadn't seen in a long time. So my Facebook account, my new one, because I have one that is old and I can't access. My new one, the way you'll know that it's my current one is that I'm wearing a brown sweater and I have like a little brown necklace on it. It's not the one of me by the creek with my dog in the background. That's the old one, and the pictures were just so similar that I'm sure people got confused. But my guides told me to start with a card, and I've also lit a candle. Hey, I'm so glad you're here. I lit a candle to sort of center the energy. And let's just draw an angel card really quick before we get down to it. How you doing, dude? I'm just so happy that you're able to tune in. It's more than just, the fact that there's just someone else with me here. I think it shifts the energetic and makes it spread out just a lot more. The more people, it's like exponential. Okay, we got Soked Hosi. Who's this dude? I don't know, but he looks nice. Partnership. Okay, let's look up the partnership card, and I'm just going to go through it super quick. Wilt thou love God as he thee? Then digest, my soul, this wholesome meditation, how God the Spirit by angels waited on in heaven doth make his temple in thy breast. John Donne, Divine Poems 15. This dude, Suked Hosi, is the keeper of divine balances, holding the balance of feeling and truth in our lives through our partners. There is a special dynamic involved in intimate relationships between two people who are committed to love. When you at last find the one who is your soulmate, the relationship is tremendously uplifting, supportive, and satisfying. Each day is celebrated and is better than the one before. Fire and passion are free from the pettiness of many karmic relationships. You feel a synergy that allows the combination of your feelings, creative thought, and resources to go far beyond what you can imagine doing alone. I was just talking about exponential expansion with relationship. I'm well. Wanted to support before my meeting with my boss, so I'll be hanging out around for a bit. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So this is just describing the ideal, like the evolved relationship, which we all have on some level. I'm going to finish this because this really is the energy update. It's about relationship, isn't it? You feel a synergy going beyond what you could do alone. A love this deep can be your lifeline to survive the most dire circumstances, as well as magnify the joy of celebration and accomplishment 100-fold. Both of you are transformed by a love so vast that old beliefs simply melt away, allowing new insight and understanding to take their place. When you join in marriage, the celebration transcends the limitation of matter as triumphant waves of love flow through the cosmos. I have never drawn that card before, and I'm going to look more into it, but I think the guides are saying really put your intention towards the best relationship possible. We all are in relationship, if only with yourself. But I have been doing a lot of cosmic connection reports for people lately, and what I do is I get the birthdays, I look at the cards, I kind of get like the pixelated picture from all of that. These are what the influences are, and then the story, the past lives, what they're doing in this lifetime begins to flow through and kind of explain, here's what you're doing right now. And I'll be doing a a video on the Kismet Cards channel about this, but we found a client and me. She explained the decant card to me, and I finally figured it out. And then I realized that it's both she and I separately realized that it embodies the ideal relationship, the kind of egoless place where you interact kind of above it all, and everybody's is just a little different. So, anyway, something that I've really been witnessing in all of these relationship readings, as well as my own relationship, is, and in this moment, this coalescing understanding of how beautiful, how precious, how important, how sacred, even in the most mundane, frustrating, he irritates me, she bugs me, I feel like I can't be myself with him sometimes, da 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 da. You know, we all have our complaints, the limitations. And a couple of weeks ago, I think we went through like eclipse season. It was just snapping at each other, and it was just like, ah, you know, and everybody was going through something that I knew, all my close friends, all their partnerships. In fact, there was an apex day. It was a Monday, I think, a Sunday or a Monday, and things just got really intense. But that's the beauty, is that and now I feel like it's just evened out into this really beautiful place. I think energetically we've come through something really big, like a big wave. It was challenging before that, and then the full moon leading up to that, the Gemini in Sagittarius full moon, I personally was super energized. It was an incredibly positive period for me. Really positive, very expansive mentally, lots of discoveries and memories of my lifetimes in Atlantis and Lymuria spontaneously just landed in my lap. It was a really dynamic time. So I just, before we depart from the subject of relationship, I just want to bless everyone's relationship. And when I am honored to look into the guts of someone's relationship, they open that very sacred, private space to say, tell me what you see here on a cosmic level. And I'm deeply honored, and what I see is two souls who loved each other so purely on the other side that they volunteered to play these really important roles for each other, to do some of the most important work of our lives. So I just want you to thank God for your partner. Thank God especially for the difficult things, because one of the things I saw is that somebody's partner took on a character flaw partly as a teaching for the other because they wanted to learn something. So, in a kind of reverse way, that thing that bugs you about your partner the most, thank them for saying yes to you to say, I'm going to provide the material for you to work with so that you can really get something, whether it's patience or self-sufficiency or non-attachment, which always comes as the opposite first, right? So anyway, on to my experience. So I wanted to show you guys the book. I put it up for a second in my last video. It's called, let's see if I have it. Yes. Kitchen tables become my office. Okay, this is really good. A Hypnotist Journey to Atlantis, and Sarah Bressman Cosme, I think that's how you pronounce it. She, check this out. I got this $12 used from, just a bookseller site. If you can avoid Amazon, do as much as you can avoid it. But anyway, a lot of people wrote to her after she published it and said, it might be. It is on Amazon. I mean, it's being sold through Amazon, but I just got a used copy somewhere. It came out a couple years ago. They wrote it during the lockdown. Her really good friend, that they had been kind of thrown together, life circumstances, like having children at the same time and living in the same area, and then having another child kind of at the same time after the same gap. And I don't know. And it wasn't like a really, really super emotionally deep relationship. It was just this really solid friendship. And her friend was not spiritual at all, like not into that kind of stuff at all. But she had a health problem. And so when Sarah was getting her certification in QHHT, quantum healing hypnosis therapy, the Dolores Cannon method, which is really the Cadillac method of hypnotherapy, she needed a subject to work with, and to have a person like that who has no spiritual belief in anything, just kind of spiritual, was the perfect setup. And she also had a health problem that she just was at her wit's end. She was at the end of her rope, and this problem did get solved. This physical problem got solved instantly with the quantum healing hypnosis. But what started to come up was this woman's memory of Lemuria and Atlantis. And the book is just a fantastic read because she has a whole bunch of clients that come to her during that time period that line up in just the coolest ways in the details with the information that's coming through. And after she published it, people wrote and said, "Hey, I had spontaneous memories of Lemuria and Atlantis, and it changed the trajectory of my life." And I was like, "God, that'd be so cool if that happened, but that kind of stuff just never happens to me." Well, guess what happened? It happened. And I'm going to share the details of it, and I hope that a kind of transmission comes through. Um, it's not a huge drama or anything, but the energy of this really has shifted my perspective on this culture, especially. I feel like I have a really holistic understanding of this world. And God knows we have so much pain just living in this world, right? And I think that's why a lot of us have just like shut it out, because it's just like, it's just reached crazy town proportions, like a level of absurdity that is just like way too painful for me to like try to deal with. So, anyway, let us begin. So I recorded this. I just hit this voice record thing on my phone and I was just talking as these memories were coming to me. So there's an overwhelming heartache, and I was crying through this entire recollection, and it was very strange because they were really, really deep tears. It was really deep sadness, but even when I listen to my voice, it's like it's located somewhere outside my body, and yet it's in my body. It was very strange, like my grief, but not my grief. It was in my body, but it wasn't. Very strange. So anyway, I just went with it. There was an overwhelming heartache. I was very tall and thin and tan, kind of Samoan kind of tan. Um, I had the understanding as I was looking at this lifetime that she had a lifetime in Lemuria and then incarnated into Atlantis, um, not consciously, but it was for the purpose of weaving the threads from Lemuria and Atlantis into this culture. Okay, I have to explain a lot of that because I haven't been super exposed to the information that's been coming through on Lemuria and Atlantis, but I think the general gist of it is very consistent with this story, with a lot of detail added, is that Lemuria was like the consciousness of a 12-year-old girl. I've heard it described that way. There's an innocence, there's a purity. They weren't into technological advancement because they were very spiritually aware and awake. It was a matriarchal society. The women were in charge. Everybody was treated with love and equality. It wasn't this hierarchy, domination, money thing. Atlantis was the absolute opposite and the worst possible sort of soulless kind of energy you can imagine. So, as I was looking at all of this, I have to explain there was a simultaneity of occurrence. As she had exited from her body and was looking at this lifetime, she was able to access my consciousness as it is now. And when I was observing this, she and I, and she was me, we're being healed and transformed at the same time. It's like when we exit the body, we're in a no time and we have access to our eternal consciousness throughout lifetimes. That's the best way I can explain it. And this really wonderful healing happened because she was just like so depressed. So I was like, oh, I was just shown from the get go, this is why you're seeing this lifetime. So she was from Lymuria and had all these memories. She came to, in this way, to best influence the culture. There was a guide in the Akashic Records who was explaining all of this to me. Oh, good. Thank you. I appreciate that confirmation. In case you can't see this, if you're watching it later, he said, definitely past life energy I feel you're experiencing. Yeah. It was very powerful, and I'm getting that you're feeling it. So now is the time for us to understand, and I have been waiting with bated breath ever since this happened to make this video, and it just wasn't time, but I'm so excited because I think it's time for us to remember who we are. And actually the title of this video, I'll go and change it afterwards, is Ascension is Remembering. It's that simple. So anyway, yes, they were explaining, and then I didn't even catch this very poetic little thing that they showed me. They said, you were a weaver in that lifetime. And what they had just showed me was a mesh. I was like so in it, I didn't see it. So I'm like, it's like a mesh of Lemurian and Atlantean culture, what we have now in the world, basically, especially the United States. And we're geographically between the two. I think this was all ocean. We already know that. And Lemuria was in the Pacific and Atlantis was in the Atlantic. So anyway, then they showed me I was a weaver, and there's a little person standing there because I would weave these big pieces of fabric, and they were really crazy about gem colors, like gem-like blues and emerald green. And something interesting that's been happening started happening about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, actually. I became utterly compelled to find this particular emerald green to put in my earrings that I had just made. And they're gold. I usually work with silver tones and really long stuff, and these were completely different. They were gold and emerald green. And that's what I worked with in this lifetime. Atlanteans loved the gem colors, and that's just what really stood out to me. In fact, in this book, she describes this guy had figured out how to alchemize gold, lead into gold, and they gold-plated everything in the city. So it is that 3 rings, and if you were in the outer ring, you were in the lower class, and if you were in the center ring, you were the elite, and there was no traveling, no advancement. But they valued me as an artisan. Let's see. Okay, I want to stay on track. So there was just so much pain, so many tears, because this culture didn't actually value beauty for its own sake. Everything got turned into a commodity. Everything that was good, pure, precious, that had virtue was turned into, a price tag was put on it. So yeah, it's the same as our culture, but I have a lot to say about that. Okay. And I was very sad in that lifetime because I just felt this vacuum of love, care, valuing something for its own sake. There was an anger and a pain, and I felt crazy. In fact, I allowed others to think that I was crazy because I didn't make sense to anybody. Why was I sad all the time? What did I want? What did I need? Why was I so disappointed in the culture? And I didn't remember my Lemurian lifetime. I might have had feelings or a sense of it, but I was prevented from knowing too much because it would have been unendurable because the contrast between these two cultures was so immense. So yeah, they thought that I was crazy, and I was like, that's okay. Maybe I am. And I think that's where, like, I have had this fear of losing my mind in this lifetime. And I think it goes directly back to this. And what came to me, their culture was devoid of sensation, the word sensate. I think the pleasure of sensate beauty, like texture, shape, even the feeling like you're tasting your emotions, the sensory experience. And I think this is a cultural thing specific to that lifetime that's difficult to translate this concept. But I think what was happening is there was such a constant drive that people never took the time to actually use their five senses and more to experience what was around them. In fact, it's even said in this book, you just gotta get it. You've gotta get it. It is so much fun to read. Um, that they invented time and timepieces so that they could be more productive. The invention of time started in Atlantis, and it's like it just reminds me of New York, you know. And there was something significant about New York, the location, the geographic location of it, and Atlantis, and there's just an energy of Atlantis that lives there, and you can just see it, feel it. It's ugh. Um, anyway, nature. I was very drawn to nature. Thank God I lived on the outer ring because we lived right on the ocean, I think. I even wondered, is that water or land out there? And it might have been a combination. But I was very drawn to aquatic colors and beings in the water and the fish. And when I was getting this, it was just like, of course there's mermaids and merlife. I was very drawn to them. I was aware of the beauty there, but that was also a commodity. So we infiltrated this culture, and that word is just so significant because we have infiltrated this culture, right? Only we grew up. Whispers of women. Let's see, there were whispers of friendship, understanding. I did have some female friends. There are probably in this lifetime my closest buddies that had booths at the marketplace. They also made stuff. There were tall palm trees on this outer island that were considered weeds by the elite, but they're like, we're not going to invest in, taking care of it. We're not going to do the grooming that we do. We invest in grooming the landscaping, very controlled, and it was recognized as a virtue to control everything, to direct it. This energy of, well, take charge. Like I can just feel it right now. That's the way to do it. Take charge. Make it the way you want to make it. And you can even feel that blending with the metaphysical movement. Take charge. Make it the way you want it. Where have you heard that before? It's just, and this isn't black and white. This isn't to judge that. That's something that Lemurians, light workers, those that are more feminine in their understanding of virtue and goodness, maybe we lacked that a little bit, the initiative, the assertiveness. Abraham Hicks is all about, what do you want? And I remember getting to a certain point in this lifetime in my early 20s, and I went, what do I want? That's what's going to guide my life. What do I want? Instead of being bumped around by what was around me. In Lemuria, you didn't have to figure that out because you didn't have to go against anything. What you wanted was the way it was. It was perfect. It was Eden. So developing this muscle of this clarifying thing, what I want. I remember my first divorce too. I was like, ooh, this is a dangerous question for people who have the illusion of happiness, but something's wrong. And they're like, ooh, I don't want to ask that question. What do I want? Because that means I'll have to change something. Oh, good. Awesome. Going to have your wife listen to this, the connection with water. Yeah, there's more about that whole water thing. Holy shit. So moving on. Yes. The palm trees. We loved the palm trees because I love the palm trees because our little secret was that nature on its own that's not influenced or controlled holds the most pure frequency that we were after. We couldn't name what was missing quite. We just knew that there was this enormous void. And so the trees held a frequency. The coconuts blew in over the water and they just kind of grew like weeds. And they were regarded as weeds. But imagine they were like, pff, but they're roses. And this just like, there was such a value there. In fact, there's probably a connection with coconuts there too. Anyway, moving on. Home in Lymuria. Oh God, I sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. It was really uncomfortable listening to myself. And when I re-listened to it, I was like, I cried full on for like a full 30 seconds at least, just like deep, deep sobbing, because this woman that I was able to see what she was missing and it all made sense. And she was going through an integration process of, oh, I went straight from Lemuria into this lifetime. It was very important for us to take that fresh energy of Lemuria to infiltrate Atlantis, to experience what was missing. Because man, you get really clear on what's important when it's missing, right? And then to incarnate here. It was all this conjoined purpose. It didn't matter that it's separated by thousands and thousands of years. I felt more aligned with her than I have a lot of other past life experiences I've had. Like I can see the last 7 and they only go back like maybe a couple hundred years. And it was just like this densely packed kind of 7 lifetime project. And each one moved west. It started out, I think, in Russia, and then it moved to Germany, and then it moved to France, and then it moved across the ocean, New York, and then it was the frontier and Idaho and Colorado. Isn't that cool? I love that. That's really a great story. I should tell that sometime because of the things that culmination. Culmination. That's the word I've been trying to remember for days now. I always felt like this was a culmination lifetime where I'm culminating all those other 7 lifetimes. And truly I was in integrating that, but that was like 30 years ago. Now I'm culminating, and I think we're all culminating a much larger picture. And when people say, and this has irritated me from the very beginning because I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to believe it. Where's the evidence? This is pie in the sky. Why is everybody saying we're going to ascend and 5D and we're all going to wake up, remember who we are, and we're going to take back our culture. We're going to flip this planet. We're going to all those things, right? Well, I really do embrace that. I have to admit it. I can't hold it too close to the vest because it's actually really painful. But I think that's the soul energy, the love, the intention that we all had coming together. And, the Atlanteans, all of us, it's not like good and bad. And I know that I'm putting that across and I apologize for it, but there were good things in Atlantis that are present here. So let me finish this. Okay, she now understands why she felt crazy. That fear of losing one's mind is that you question your capacity to interpret reality. There were others like me. It was explained as a kind of fever. And there was an episode, it might have been Stargate or a movie or whatever, maybe Star Trek, but there were people that would come close to remembering it was SG-1. And they were all mind wiped, and they were being used as slaves in some factory on some planet. And they would have dreams that were helping them to remember what was going on. And they were, if they had these dreams, they were immediately labeled as having the fever, the dream sickness, the night sickness, and then they were drugged up. That, SG-1, what a documentary that whole freaking series was. I remembered this, that women were especially, they explained it scientifically, and they said you were born on a hot day, and it stretched your brain or melted your brain a little bit, and you're more vulnerable to this condition of sadness. They were called the mourners, and they were relegated to this kind of green, mossy, swampy place. Um, those were the people that managed to remember. They worked really hard on remembering, and it was too much. It was too much sadness to bear, and so they did go a little crazy. They were just like lepers. Um, yeah, it's crazy to think about, isn't it? Um, but there was a little bit of truth to it because there was a condition that existed in our birth that did allow us to be more intact as human beings. And I don't know what it was, but I was understanding all of this. Um, the book that was sealed is now open. There's programs exploding off of the top of my head. I couldn't think of culmination, so I wrote coalescence. Okay, then it was later that day. Yeah, it was later that day. Like I just like got up and just did my thing and felt completely normal, you know. Read a little bit more of the book, and then I had another session. Okay, I'm making these. I made a lot of money with the tapestries. Well, a lot of money, right? You know, they're showing me a handful of coins, which was a lot compared to those around me. That it was a constant control through poverty. But I made more than those around me. But I had such disgust and contempt for the culture and the system, especially because there was no advancement. There was no way to better my situation. And I was like, they expect me to buy their trinkets. I call them trinkets, like they're, you know, technologically advanced, you know, labor saving devices, which is the same thing that they anesthetized this culture with in the 50s. You know, it's like, oh, get this and get that and get this and get that. And then the old way of doing things, it actually, it made it so that we had less time, not more time. And the time was less consciously spent. And we are learning that in this culture. I hope we have a renaissance. Since we have chickens, I hope we have a renaissance and a return to an agronomy, agrarian lifestyle. And there's a Star Trek, The Next Generation episode where they're super, super old, but they've learned how to stay young, and they've chosen an agrarian lifestyle because they recognize that the most value comes from having a balance with technology, and they didn't have any power, no electric power. It was just clever devices that didn't have any power, and they maintained this beautiful. Oh, I just have such feelings about that. Anyway, yes, so I gave the money to the kids. I don't think I had kids. Probably because it would have been too painful, but I just because there's so much love there, and that would have made me remember stuff. Okay, everyone's about 7 feet tall. This is where it came clear to me. Um, everyone's just really tall, and I think that the gravity was less. I it was a different hybridization. It was a different time in our, I hate to use the word evolution, you know, but this book also describes like the origins of who landed on the planet when and started to hybridize with the Neanderthals that were living here, and how these races came about, how the Neanderthals with O-type blood, um, who are more resistant to disease and viruses and such, had a more feminine-based culture. And then this other group that came in, there was one individual in particular in this group who was more into technology and had more of an ego, and he kind of seeded the whole Atlantean thing. So they actually came from the same races, kind of. Anyway, everybody's tall, but there were some that were short. My hair is long, dark, and wavy. I have it held back. Oh, if I could have had a career I would have been, and this is the way I was saying it, so I'm not sure if I did do it or if I had the ability and now I'm doing it in this lifetime instead, or did it in Lemuria. Anyway, I would have been a seer of souls. And what I could do was I could behold someone and brush away the culturally accepted face, and I could behold them with my heart and reflect that back to them to help them make contact with themselves. It's a soul ability. I had a selenite type crystal that helped me do this. That may have been in Lemuria. I wasn't sure if I actually did this in Atlantis. I was sealed off from my heart. They also did a sealing off from our hearts as we incarnated into that lifetime. There were some there was some nefarious force that did something, or maybe it wasn't nefarious, maybe I don't know. All I know is that there was another force that sealed us off from our memories, and then we just continued to cut ourselves off. There was a subset that undid the seal. Those women were in this green swampy place, also might have been why I was thinking green. They were called the mourners, the excessive feelings. They were regarded like they were not well, you know. Excuse me. Oh, I wrote pure self, Omatakaya, from Omatakaya, from Avatar, I see you. I was just reminded of that. So I was thinking about this lifetime. I'm kind of coexisting with this consciousness who was reviewing this lifetime, and I just said, oh, I wish she had Jesus. I wish she had had Jesus to cling to. That would have been so comforting, someone, something. Then they told me, she said, I knew a great one across the sea. It was a man or it was a being. He was associated with the colors light blue and white, the same exact colors we see Jesus in, his garments, or Mother Mary. And I turned a stone with those colors into a necklace, and it was my spiritual connection. The Mer people told these stories to the humans that they were very curious about each other, the Mer people and I want to call them humanoids. It was us. We were human-ish, mostly human. And they were very curious about each other, but if they got caught by the control structures of Atlantis, they would be experimented on, and it was really, really horrific. So eventually they learned to just keep their distance. But when they were interacting, these stories got passed into the culture about Lemuria, and it got a little distorted, I think. I think it may have been a feminine being, like a guru, a spiritual, someone of some development, and then it turned into a story about a man because Atlantis was so masculine driven. But anyway, that necklace was my spiritual connection. A very vague sense that there was someone somewhere who knew stuff. Well, guess what I did? That's pretty much the end of that. I do have one memory of Lemuria, and I hope I get more of that. But I did some research. I was laying in bed one night and I was like, that was Larimar, that stone that was light blue and white, Larimar. So if I have my phone here, which I know I do, I know I brought my phone over here. Yes, I took pictures of it. I went online and I knew that this is what it was. This is one version of Larimar, and that's another. Isn't that just intense? So what it was is the result of a volcano. Oh, that's a dog. What else do I have on here? Oh, there he is again. Look at this. Anyway, Larimar, it's so totally rocks. You should take a screenshot, like pause it and take a screenshot. Just look it up and just touch images. Well, anyway, as I tuned into this stone, and everything that it's supposed to be, all the properties of it just like was a perfect fit for how that stone made me feel when I hung it around my neck. And of course, it is throat chakra, and it maybe I was able to express a little bit of what I felt and what I knew in my heart and how people should be with each other, and all I don't know. So anyway, the one little memory that I have of Lemuria is that and this came a couple weeks ago, maybe even before I started reading this book, but it was. I There was this Vesica Pisces shaped vat. It was about this big, and it was convex, and it was filled with something. It felt like a crystal. And then I talked to a friend about it, and she's like, "We saw that when we traveled to Lemuria. It's plasma, and it was indigo and blue." And that's all I got, is that I worked with this thing. Maybe it would make me too sad to know about it. I don't know. I really want to retrieve these memories. Anyway, what I was ready for was the Atlantis and the integration of, oh, I'm from Lemuria. Because this lifetime is so similar, there's not a huge frequency difference. So my understanding of what it means to be an American, what it means to just be in the world at this time, because it's all kind of like, America. It's all, I'm sorry, I'm going to be fussing with me here. Gosh darn it, why did I do that? Anyway, so the really important piece of all of this is that our culture is an infiltration. It is ruled by the Atlanteans. We have it's Atlantean governed, and they run the pharmaceutical, the medical, the education, obviously the media, government, industry, business. It's all in those lines. It's all in those tracks where the highest value is making money and power. It's all power and money. But our culture is heavily infiltrated with Lemurian influence. There are energy healers, things like chiropractic and massage and Reiki even are, and hypnotherapy. All these things have woven their way into the medical fields and all these other places where they've been getting more and more credibility. And this is part of the wound of being Lemurian and doing your due, especially if you're an energy worker, you're a psychic, you do what I do. Um, it's really, really painful. And I was just feeling this a couple weeks ago, and just kind of having a little whining session with my husband, but really literally crying. I was like, to be an expert in this realm of working with energy and to have it so ridiculed by the world, it's really freaking painful. And it's not like I needed stature in Lemuria and for people to respect me, but there was just this healthy acknowledgement and healthy, loving respect of like, oh yeah, if you want someone to look into your soul, there's a seer of souls. She lives over there. Go see her. She's really good at it, And it was it was just regarded. This was common. And it wasn't, another Atlantean thing is the competition and the better than and the whole function of the ego and all of that. Ugh. So anyway, we're just this huge amalgamation of the two. And I'm at a point where I'm beginning to kind of let in the idea that as Lemurians, we needed to grow up. 12-year-old girls need to grow up. They need to become sexual. They need to integrate their own sexuality. They have to develop boundaries. They have to learn to protect themselves. They have to grow up and integrate masculinity to be a healthy, well-rounded individual. And you can look at this all as story. It's just like a Freudian whatever dream about integrating masculine and feminine. But if you're watching this, you know that this is true. This actually happened, but it's a physical, living real-time sequential integration of masculine and feminine, and that's what we're doing in this culture. And we've been made tough, coming from like Lyra, coming from the Pleiades, coming from Arcturus and Andromeda, and then coming into this place where we have to deal with reptilians and all kinds of stuff. So, I had a really dear friend pass away a few days ago, and I am not in a grief mode yet. I think because I haven't been to the funeral and made contact with the fact that his physicality is gone, so it hasn't hit my human yet. That's how I'm thinking about it, because I haven't felt any grief. I just talk to him all the time now. And I'm like, hey, George, can you go into the Akashic Records and like give me some intel? And he was like, okay. And he talks like this way that he did, where his voice would kind of crack. And he'd be like, okay, because you want it, I'll go in there. And he pulls something off the shelf and he just starts telling me about JFK. It was so great. It was so great. And I recorded it. And I'll do a video on that. I will review the recording. I'll take notes. But one of the things I asked was the extreme darkness, that we know about in this community, and he said it will not be able to exist on your planet when everybody's frequency goes up. He said it in a way that I'd never heard about it before, but he said specifically, when children are regarded, when your inner child is regarded with a vibe, with a frequency, cumulatively throughout the whole planet, in a way that is sacred and loving and kind, and this regard, then it won't be able to. It won't be a frequency match. Hi. Uh-oh, she's busy. I'm making a video. So that's all. That's all, really. Basically, that's it for the Lemurian and Atlantean adventure. So here we are, and Bob's your uncle, and we're all making it work. We're infiltrators.